The year was 1997, and Vienna, Austria, was cloaked in its usual charm. The city's cobblestone streets bustled with life. Tourists marveled at the Baroque architecture, and locals sipped coffee in quaint cafes. Yet, amidst the beauty, a chilling presence lurked in the shadows, a serial killer who would come to be known as the Violinist of Death. The first strike. In February of that year, the body of a young woman, Clara Weiss, was found in her apartment near the Danube River. Clara was a violinist at the Vienna Philharmonic, and her death sent shockwaves through the community. She was discovered strangled, with a violin string wrapped tightly around her neck. On her bedside table lay a single rose and a handwritten note that read, "Music ends, but silence lingers." Detectives initially thought it was a crime of passion. Clara's boyfriend, a fellow musician, was interrogated for days, but his alibi checked out. With no fingerprints or DNA evidence, the case completely cold. A pattern emerges. 3 months later, another victim surfaced. This time it was a university professor, Lydia Kohler, known for her lectures on classical music history. Like Clara, Lydia was strangled with a violin string, and a rose was left on her desk alongside a similar cryptic note. Harmony demands sacrifice. Panic began to grip the city. The media coined the nickname the Violinist of Death, and the police formed a task force. Investigators noticed that both victims were deeply connected to Vienna's music scene, leading them to suspect someone with intimate knowledge of the industry. The investigation detective Lucas Stein, a veteran with decades of experience, took the lead on the case. He and his team began to map out connections between the victims. Both Clara and Lydia had performed at the same charity concert 3 years earlier, an event that had showcased Vienna's rising stars in classical music. Among the attendees was a reclusive composer named Victor Adler, a man known for his brilliance, but also his erratic behavior and disdain for modern interpretations of classical music. Adler became a prime suspect, but his alibi for both murders was solid. Surveillance footage and eyewitness accounts placed him far from the crime scenes. Frustrated but not deterred, Stein expanded the investigation, interviewing dozens of musicians, stagehands, and event organizers who had connections to the charity concert. The killer strikes again. As the investigation dragged on, another body was discovered. This time it was a teenage prodigy, Anna Hartmann, found in a practice room at the Vienna Conservatory. The same grim details repeated: the violin string, the rose, and the note. This one read, "Perfection is an unforgiving master." The city's fear turned into outrage. Curfews were imposed, and concerts were canceled. Detective Stein, under immense pressure, began to suspect that the killer might be someone who not only knew the victims, but also harbored a deep obsession with Vienna's classical music legacy. The breakthrough came when Stein's team discovered an old photograph from the charity concert. In the background, a man's face appeared repeatedly in candid shots with the victims. The man, identified as Jakob Gruber, was a former violin maker whose career had been ruined after a public scandal involving counterfeit instruments. Gruber had disappeared from the public eye shortly after the concert. Upon investigating Gruber's last known address, police found a trove of disturbing evidence: scrapbooks detailing the lives of the victims, personal items stolen from their homes, and a collection of violin strings. Gruber's manifesto, titled "The Symphony of Silence," outlined his delusional belief that he was purging the world of those who defiled the purity of music. The final act. A citywide manhunt ensued, and Gruber was finally cornered in an abandoned concert hall on the outskirts of Vienna. When police arrived, they found him playing a haunting melody on an old violin. As they closed in, he smashed the instrument against the stage floor and shouted, "You cannot silence the truth. Gruber was arrested and later confessed to the murders, showing no remorse. During his trial, he claimed that his actions were acts of artistic purification, calling his victims dissonant notes in a perfect symphony. Legacy of terror. Jakob Gruber was sentenced to life imprisonment. His crimes left a scar on Vienna. The Violinist of Death became a dark chapter in the city's history, a grim reminder that even in a place of beauty and culture, darkness can thrive in the shadows.